Welcome to the Mountain View City Council Candidate Forum. I'm Lisa McLean, President of the League of Women Voters, Los Altos Mountain View. I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. Tonight's forum will last 1.5 hours. Due to the nature of a webinar, we cannot provide technical assistance to attendees. All forums will be recorded and available to watch from our elections event page on our website. Our website is our initials, League of Women Voters, Los Altos Mountain View.org, LWV.org. Visible on your screen will be the moderator, the candidates, and the timer app. Submit any questions about this event through the Q&A. When answered, the question and answer will be visible to all attending. Chat will not be available. Questions for candidates have been submitted with registration. We have combined similar questions to be able to cover as wide a range of topics as possible. Given limited time and the number of candidates, we will not have time for additional questions from the audience. Now I'd like to introduce tonight's moderator, Jan Pepper. Jan?
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome to all the candidates and the members of the audience. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit organization of women and men that promotes informed, active participation in government. We do not support, oppose, or evaluate political candidates or parties, but after careful study, we do take positions on political issues. The League invites anyone who is interested in supporting democracy and local government to join us. Here is the format for today's forum. Each candidate will make a 60-second opening statement. Questions were selected to be relevant to all candidates and to provide useful information to the audience about issues in this race. Candidates will be given 60 seconds to respond. Finally, the candidates will have 60 seconds to make a closing statement at the end. An electronic timer will display each candidate's remaining time. It will also randomly shuffle the order of candidates responding to each question. The timer will display the name of the current speaker and the next speaker at the bottom of the window. So we ask our candidates to abide by the following. First, time limits. When the timer line turns red, I will say, "Thank you. Please complete your current sentence." Second, respect. Candidates will not interrupt each other. And third, fairness. Campaign marketing materials will not be visible on the candidate's screen. Now, I would like to introduce the 9 candidates who are running for 4-year terms and on the 4 available seats on the Mountain View City Council. Please raise your hand as you're introduced, and I will introduce you alphabetically. Margaret Abekoga, Jose Gutierrez, John Lashley, Sally Lieber, Lisa Matichek, Alex Nunez, Pat Showalter, Lenny Siegel, Paul Rolls. Candidates, thank you all for participating in today's forum. So we are now ready to begin. The timer will display the name of the current and the next speaker, and you will get started with your first 60-minute opening statement. Paul.
Thank you for everyone for joining us tonight and for the League for hosting us. This period, as everyone knows, is a very historically unique time for our city, with smoke in the air, with heat waves, with the continued spread of COVID, of course. And that unique time presents opportunity for us to create a city that works better for everyone. And so we need a city that moves fast to take hold of this opportunity, to leverage this unique time in our city's history, and to really create a great city moving forward. As a college student at Purdue University, I was the first elected to the City Council in West Lafayette, Indiana. During my time there, I built unique coalitions, being less than half the age of everyone else in the city, and was very effective in helping the city move quickly. And so that's the unique outsider perspective that we need to get over the past hurdles in our city, but also the unique experience we need in this very important time moving forward. And so I look forward to debating the issues tonight with everyone, and thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next up is Lisa.
Thank you very much for holding this forum tonight. It's been an honor to be on the council these past 4 years. We've accomplished a lot, but there's still a lot more work to be done. For the foreseeable future, we need to focus on helping our residents and our small businesses recover from the pandemic, and also make changes to the city operations to adapt to a new way of doing business. We need to keep our sustainability plans on track so that we meet our carbon emission reduction goals, and we need to preserve the character of our existing neighborhoods even as we grow. And speaking of growth, we need to make sure we have great neighborhoods, the new neighborhoods, with the infrastructure to support them in East Wisman and North Bayshore, where substantial housing can be built. I'm looking forward to our discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next up is Pat.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Pat Showalter, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this. Times are uncertain, so we need to elect people we can count on. I've been an active member of the Mountain View community for 36 years, volunteering in schools, being a Girl Scout leader, serving on the EPC for 9 years, and finally honored to be your council member for 4 years. I'm known for championing housing and the environment and for treating everyone with respect. By profession, I'm a civil engineer. So that means my experience relates directly to the infrastructure, sustainability, and land use decisions that come before council so often. My government service has taught me how to get things done, both regionally and locally. Since leaving council, I've continued to advocate for affordable housing and climate resilience. I serve on the board of Alta Housing and on the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Jose.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? I hope everyone's doing safe and well. I'm Jose Gutierrez Jr. I'm a member of the Mountain View Wisman School Board of Trustees. I was elected in 2015, appointed actually, out of a field of 11 candidates, ran in 2016, and was successful to a 4-year term. During the last 5 years of the school board, previous to that, it was fragmented. Since then, we've been able to act as one unifying force, acting like a team, figuring out district-wide issues and district-wide solutions, bringing members of our community along the way to participate in the growth of our district and in problem-solving issues unique to each campus itself. That type of leadership and consensus building and positive energy and problem-solving, learning to get well with others, even though you may have a different opinion, is key to governmental success. That's what I would bring to the table at City Council, and I hope to win your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Sally, I believe you're next.
Thank you so much. Well, it's a real pleasure to be here tonight with my colleagues who are running, and also with the League and everyone who's supporting the League. You know, there could not be a more important time for the League and the volunteerism and activism within the League than there is right now, because governance is such an important issue. And it's obviously a very challenging time for Mountain View. COVID crisis has really opened up more recognition of our housing crisis, of the impacts of our need to fight against climate destruction, and of the issue of equity in our community. And I'm very eager to see us work towards more housing, affordable, quality childcare, small business recruitment, and most importantly, retention, and those climate strategies that will be so determinative of our future. So thank you so much for having us here tonight.
Thank you, Sally. Next up is Alex.
Thank you. So thank you for everyone for being here. My name is Alex Nunez, and I'm running for Mountain View City Council because I fundamentally believe that it is the responsibility of our leadership to look and fight for the well-being of our residents ahead of all other interests. Over the years that I've been here in Mountain View, I've embodied this conviction by taking leadership roles in the campaign against Measure D this last March, and in the campaign for Yes on Measure P, the progressive business tax, last November in 2018, to make sure that we are looking ahead to sustainable growth with equity for our future. I am of the strong belief that now more than ever, what we need is to have people in office whose futures are on the front lines of our many catastrophes. We need to make sure that we bring the fresh perspective of people who are not able to afford being single issue voters, but must look at everything in an interconnected manner. And that's a perspective I will bring to council, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you, Alex. Next, we'll hear from John.
My name is John Lashley. I'm a proud renter, worker, and activist in Mountain View. I'm a data scientist at LinkedIn, and I will bring this type of systemic and analytical thinking we need to the City Council. First, thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. In Mountain View, we're fortunate to have a great culture of civic engagement and sense of community. During the pandemic, more than ever, we need neighbor-to-neighbor solidarity and support, and we must be deliberative about how we protect our city during this difficult time. We must expand our rent and mortgage relief program to prevent every eviction possible. We must solve our racially biased police arrest record, where our Black and Latinx neighbors are much more likely to be arrested than our white and Asian Pacific neighbors. We must protect our small businesses. We must expand rent relief to our mobile home residents. I'm campaigning to do this and more. I hope to win your support tonight with my platform, honesty, and conviction. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up will be Margaret.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us. I've had the honor of serving on the Mountain View City Council for 12 years and as mayor in 2009 and this year. During this pandemic, nationwide civil unrest, and wildfires, as mayor, I've worked hard to successfully respond to our community's concerns and needs. Working together with my colleagues, staff, other public, private, and nonprofit partners, I initiated the largest rent relief program in the county, a small business resiliency program, open safe parking lots for vehicle dwellers, enhanced food, hygiene, and safety assistance for homeless low-income families, brought COVID testing to Mountain View, opened Castro Street's outdoor dining, and fostered community dialogue around diversity while working to ensure equitable and inclusive city service delivery. We now need to work together to rebuild our community. My leadership experience, especially during crisis, my relationships built, and my knowledge on how to get things done, exemplified by my extensive record of results, makes me the right person to continue to serve on this city council at this critical time. I would like to continue to lead the city through the pandemic, weather the recession, and get the city back to the great
Thank you,
place it's
Margaret.
been. Thank you.
And next up is Lenny. Lenny, you're muted.
Right. The basic theme of my campaign is to preserve the cultural and socioeconomic diversity of Mountain View through the production of housing, the preservation of housing, and the protection of tenants. But I do a lot more. When I was on the council, I proposed Measure P, the graduated tax on employers. I promoted non-peak service on Caltrain and fought for grade separations up and down the peninsula to protect people from the train. I revived hopes for a school and park in the San Antonio area. I got the Stevens Creek Trail restored when it washed out. I even fought for weekly garbage pickup when it looked like we were going to lose that. I showed when I was on council, I'm capable of working with people on one issue when we disagree on another. The Mountain View Council can be like the US Senate used to be. We have some strong differences, but we can also work together, and we have. We did in my 4 years on the council. So thank you for having this. I hope to have some good questions. Someone reminded me, I'm gonna have to be sure I tell people I'm voting no on C, so yeah.
Thank you, Lenny. Okay, now we will start in with our questions. And the first question for the candidates is, how would you characterize the financial health of the city? And we'll start with Jose.
Thank you. At this point, I'm looking at it more from a step-by-step perspective. I'll just go like, I'm on the school board. Talk to me like I'm a fifth grader so I can learn what's going on. And what I've been able to do is figure out that in the immediate time, it looks not so bad, but in the long term, we're gonna need to make some cuts. We're going to have to do a reanalysis and reassess what's important to Mountain View. We have to understand that the city itself doesn't have enough money to be able to pay for a lot of social service programs that we have now. Therefore, we need to develop a plan to also outreach to our private sector friends and figure out in what instances can they help us promote these social service programs that we've been enacting so far. One thing that comes to mind is rental relief. The other could be also safe parking spaces. Our good friends at Google are now allowing their employees to work from home. Home is defined wherever you want to be. It may not be in Mountain View. So there's ample spaces there to be able to also have safe parking options for our homeless community. In the future, I'm hoping that based on our ability to revolve around the small business community, we'll also have a strong downtown, helping them out in every way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
Thank you. So Mountain View has a history of being fairly conservative when it comes to our financials. And that has put us in a fairly good position, especially in comparison to other cities. Our revenue base is more diversified than other cities. We're less reliant on property tax and sales tax than other cities because we get about 16% of our revenue from leases from city-owned property. I will give a lot of credit to previous city managers and previous councils for being so strategic to do that. Certainly COVID has had an impact, and we're going to get quarterly updates from staff on how we're doing. I've heard we did better than we thought we were going to do for the previous fiscal year, but you know, there is uncertainty. I think we need to remain flexible and make decisions as, you know, each quarter as we see how the financials are going. And you know what, I've lost the timer.
It appears that we're having trouble with the timer. So if you can maybe wrap up in a couple seconds, and then I think, Pat, you're the next speaker.
So, you know, we can cut back on some things where we have been making extra investments and take a look at where we're spending our money. But I feel pretty confident that we're going to do better than most cities and have I hope, you know, a good recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard to follow Lisa when you're talking about financial stuff. She is very knowledgeable about that. But it's true, we have a AAA bond rating, which we have earned over the course of several decades of really good fiscal management. And in times like this, it really pays off because we have a good reserve, and we have, as Lisa said, we have a very broad range of revenue sources, not just property tax, not just sales tax. That probably would hit us the hardest, and or TOT, you know, transit occupancy tax from hotels. That's, you know, there's a number of about 15 things that lead to our revenue sources, and fortunately, it's fairly well balanced. I think that we have to be ever vigilant, and that's why looking at this quarterly is really smart. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the next year or two. We're just being flexible and being as responsible as we can to what happens. But a couple things I want to emphasize, and that's that the people of Mountain View need to be able to count on city services, good city services, water. Okay.
So what I will do is, I'm not quite sure what happened with our timer. but I will do the timer on my phone, and you'll hear the harp when we get to 1 minute. So let's now go to John.
Okay. Yes, so the current health of our city is good because, like other speakers have said, the portfolio of real estate investments we have, which was a great move. And once we do weather the pandemic, I am in favor of expanding because it shows a fiscally prudent way to create a sustainable revenue source for our city. In the city budget, the current forecast is approximately a $10 million loss over the next 2 years with certain assumptions about when shelter in place will lift. I take that very seriously. The ordinary workers like me and the residents of Mountain View, our small businesses, have already made a sacrifice in this very difficult fiscal situation due to the pandemic. My approach to close that $10 million 2-year shortfall will be to approach our big businesses, which are still in business, such as Google, Microsoft, Intuit, et cetera, and levy corporate taxation to make them have their fair share of payment now. Oh, it's my time?
Okay. Thank you, John. Next, let's go to Lenny.
Hi, well, as people have been saying, Mountain View is in relatively good financial shape compared to other cities in the area. Leasing is part of it, but we also have this new graduated tax on our big employers, so we are actually going to them for money. And if you compare us to Palo Alto, we're doing relatively well because we've been developing. Now, some of that development for a long time was unbalanced, but Mountain View's, was hiring and expanding our services at a time when Palo Alto was cutting back. So we're in relatively good shape. If the pandemic keeps going on for years, then we'll be in bad shape. But I think we have to prepare for recovery. The businesses here are going to come back, and we have to deal with the problems that they create.
Thank you. You have 10 more seconds if you'd like.
It's all right.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Margaret now.
Thank you. So the budget is something that I've really kept my eye on from the beginning. When I started, I attribute it to our former city manager, Kevin Duggan, who was very fiscally prudent, and I think he trained us well. But I was mayor in 2009 during the Great Recession, and that was the year that we were looking at a deficit. And so we had to really scrutinize the budget and look at potential cuts. And we did that with a lot of community input and weekly meetings. And so I'm very mindful of the budget. We are in good shape because of the practices, the prudent practices that we've engaged in over the years on the budget. As mentioned, lease revenue is our second largest source of revenue, that which other cities don't have. We have ample reserves. I actually just met with the auditor this morning. We have 11 reserves on top of our general fund reserve. We even have a rainy day fund. So we're well prepared for that rainy day. We are in good shape.
Thank you, Margaret.
On the pandemic. Thanks.
Let's now go to Paul.
Thank you. As everyone's mentioned, the budget, the top line revenue is great right now, but as we continue to lose residents of our city, as our city continues to potentially shrink, it'll be a challenge going forward. And what is unhealthy is our budgetary process. We've seen a very sclerotic process that is very adverse to change, that takes 7 months start to end, and is very resistive to the type of change that we're going to need going forward, where we need to be nimble and responsive to the ongoing issues in our community. And so we really need to focus on how we're creating our budget going forward and the flexibility that we can build into our budget so that we can adequately respond as we continue to recover, hopefully, and confront new challenges going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Alex.
Absolutely. I would definitely describe the financial health of the city today as in good standing, as has been mentioned already. We projected a balanced budget despite all odds with the pandemic. We have a AAA bond rating. That's all good. But any financial analyst will tell you that it's not just a static moment in time that determines your financial health, but also the risk that looms on the horizon. And right now what I'm seeing is there's gonna be a loss in sales tax revenues. There's gonna be a loss in our hotel occupancy revenues. And on top of that, we also have to consider the looming wave of evictions that's gonna happen when the eviction moratorium ends, and the social costs that are gonna be incurred by our city, as well as the incoming rise in pension increases. I believe that it's important to be extremely cognizant of financial risk on the horizon and start implementing controls in place right now. I am very much in favor of assessing revenue generation as the strategic method for addressing revenue risk. And as city council member, I would make sure that we take innovative approaches with that regard. It's hard to tell without the timer. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think the last person is Sally.
Well, it's great going last because you've heard what everyone has said, and I agree with so much. And I want to give kudos to Margaret for mentioning Kevin Duggan, because he was really a formative leader for the city at a critical time that took us to the next step in terms of our size and influence, and I think taught us all so much about budgeting. And you know, Mountain View is one of the leader cities in California in terms of having a socially responsible budget principles as well, and that's something that's very, very important. I think that going forward, one issue that I would really like to see us work on is to bring more of our jobs that are currently contracted out back in-house, and to ensure that people are getting paid a wage that they can live on here. And to keep an eye on our fiduciary duty to have that fiscal sustainability for our city is just so critical, and to continue our capital projects as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good timing. All right, did I get everyone? I think so. All right, because I don't have the electronic help here, so I'm back to paper and pencil. So our second question is, due to a shortage of affordable housing, RV dwellers are parked on our streets. What are your ideas for a regional solution? And we'll start with Pat.
Okay, ideas for a regional solution. Yeah, I think that everybody can agree that living on the streets in an RV, or in a car, or by the creek in a tent is not acceptable. We want people to be sustainably housed, and we know that this homelessness is a regional, statewide really issue. It's not just ours, but we have been very responsible about trying to take care of the residents in our community who are suffering from these problems. But we know that it works better if we can work in partnership. We've had really strong partnerships with the county, and we've in a sense functioned as a pilot project for some things that I hope that we can have much better distributed throughout the region, such as the safe parking program. We've been working on that for quite a while, but this year, because the county opened it up, we helped with our legal problems. It's working now.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Margaret.
So yes, as Pat mentioned, I think we have been a leader in terms of housing and providing housing, but it's a regional issue, as we know, and I think we have to address it regionally. And so we've been working, I've been on the Cities Association of Santa Clara County Board, and we've been working to, and we actually have established a housing planning collaborative. We hope that all the cities will join so that we can share ideas and try to encourage each other to continue to build housing in all of our cities. As also mentioned, we do have the Safe Parking Lot program. We have the second largest in the county, only to San Jose. And Palo Alto, we just heard, is starting one. And actually, we've been talking with our neighboring cities to encourage them to do so. And we also just got a Project Home Key state grant to build a modular transitional housing project. And this should be coming up within like 2 or 3 months. It's quicker, it's cheaper, and it's going to house about 120 people. So we are
Thank you,
doing our
Margaret.
part. Thanks.
Okay, next we'll have John.
Thank you. So we can't solve this city by city. We do need a regional response, and we have made some progress, but it's too early to pat ourselves on the back. We have some residents in safe parking program, but 3 to 4 times as many still on the street. It would be my priority as city council member to work with nonprofits, to work with the county, and to collaborate with other cities to increase the funding to our safe parking programs so that we have an alternative to parking on the street for our vehicle dwelling residents. They have a safe, centrally located place to go with sanitary waste removal and enough caseworkers and enough transitional housing so that we can help them transition off of homelessness, out of their vehicle to transitional housing. So we've made a little bit of progress, but we do need more funding, more caseworkers, and a better safe parking program.
Thank you, John. Okay, next we will go to Alex.
Wonderful. So if you look at the numbers, the fact is that for about 4 decades, from the end of, around the 60s up until the 2000s, coastal California and, a lot of urban areas around the nation as a whole, the production of housing essentially came to a standstill. So yes, we need regional collaboration. We need to make sure we're taking a more diplomatic approach as we engage our neighbors in Palo Alto, et cetera. But we also have to recognize that there is a massive jobs housing imbalance that is decades in the making. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are relentlessly engaging our state and county, but definitely our state leaders, to facilitate bills which would increase, in particular, affordable housing, instead of working to undo those efforts. And that's what I would do as a city council member.
Oops, thank you. Next we'll go to Jose.
Yeah, not having the time, it makes a big difference, huh, Jan? But in terms of what to do, I think partnerships is always the key to be able to have a successful ability to make decisions that are most effective for the community as a whole. I've learned that in the school district. I know also, I can give one quick example. Joe Smithian came over and said, hey, I have an idea. There's a plot of land that the county has. If we partner up to have some teacher housing there between Mountain View, Palo Alto, Sunnyvale, and other areas, we can make this happen. About 1.5 years later, it happened. So we need to establish that type of community relationship and partnerships with the county to see if we can come up with a centrally located area to provide transitional housing at that next level. We all know that safe parking spots right now are not enough, but that's why we need to reach out to other members of the community to see if they can help out. Again, I mentioned the example of Google. There's others as well. But only by being able to advocate for these issues, which are difficult to deal with, will you be able to come up with a solution that might be able to help as many people as you can, knowing that you can't help everyone, but you have to at least try to come up with innovative solutions that includes partnerships.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Paul.
Thank you. What's clear is that what we've been doing is not working. The intergovernmental collaboration groups that we have today are clearly failing to produce good results. The individuals and the council culture that we have today is clearly failing to produce good results. And so we need to do something different. We need different people in there, new perspectives, fresh experience to actually make progress on this issue. And, to be specific, let's look at the track record of, it's taken 4.5 years of council debate to produce 30 parking spots for over 600 unsuitably housed individuals in our community. That's not a great track record. So what can we be doing? What can we be doing on a regional basis is holding joint meetings in public, not just like collaborative things, smoke and mirrors, quiet meetings off in the corner, but open public meetings with the joint councils between our neighboring cities. Do that regularly to build strong coalitions there that are publicly discussed, that can have public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next, we will go to Sally.
Thank you. Well, the kind of approach that I'm looking for is one where we work with the community organizations and with the individuals that need housing in our community. It's very clear to me that vehicle dwelling is here to stay in our current context. We are not going to catch up on the housing that's in the range from $500 to $2,000 a month. And that's really where these individuals have been displaced from. And, you know, it really breaks my heart to see nurses, special education aides, our retail workers be in the cars, in the minivans, in the RVs, often renting those minivans or RVs because it's the only housing available. And I think that we can't, it's a regional problem, but we have to take responsibility for our piece of it and do everything in our power. So I'd like to see a distributed approach, especially with the faith community.
Thank you, Sally. And let's go to Lisa.
Thank you. So as has been mentioned, this is definitely a regional issue, and homelessness in general is a really challenging issue to address. The folks who are homeless don't necessarily want to engage, but when they do engage with caseworkers, I think we're seeing that good progress can be made to help get them into more stable housing. But it takes a while to establish a relationship and establish trust. And, you know, the more caseworkers we have, I think the better we can do. So I do feel like that's the key, whether folks are in the safe parking lots or not in the safe parking lots. Having caseworkers helping folks, I think, is the key. And I'm looking to greater partnership with the county in that regard. I feel like they've got the infrastructure to support that. But I also want our neighboring communities to do the same thing. Maybe there's a joint effort to fund it that we could do and fund the county.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
And last is on this question, I believe, is Lenny.
In front of this. Can you hear me now? When I was collecting signatures on the referendum petition, I met a woman at Safeway who was working there, and I thought she was going to tell me to leave, but instead she said she was living in a car. Working people in this community are living in vehicles, and it's really sad. I've always taken the position that we shouldn't be banning people living in vehicles on our streets unless there's someplace for them to go. But you know, it is interesting. When East Palo Alto opened up their safe parking, half the people there were from Mountain View. We need to cooperate, as I have been, with people in neighboring cities to try to provide safe parking and provide services. If we provide that throughout our communities, we won't. People are worried about us attracting people from all over the world to come to Mountain View because we have a porta potty. That's not it. People need a way to be able to live while we're trying to solve our housing crisis. And this is the way to do it. Provide safe parking, provide services, and limit the restrictions. Let's not ban people when they have no place to go.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we got everyone on that question. Is that right? Yes. Okay, great. We'll go on now to question number 3, which is, what can we do to ensure that our local essential workers can live in our community? And we'll start with Sally.
Well, I think Lenny raised a great one earlier when he said, vote no on Measure C. We can't continue to chase and displace the essential workers that we need here in our community. And we have to put a full court press on affordable workforce housing that is compact, that's transit oriented, where we look at transit justice in terms of the price of transportation and really plan for a greater density to preserve the existence of our workforce housing. Our healthcare workers, our home care workers, our childcare workers are all the sectors of society that are going to be gone if we don't pay attention.
Thank you. Next, let's hear from Lenny.
So the 3 Ps are produce more housing, including affordable housing, preserve housing, don't continue these demolitions to build luxury homes, and protect tenants with policies like rent control, not just apartment tenants, but people living in mobile homes. Those are some of the simplest things that we can do. But there's one thing that people haven't been paying attention to right now. What I'm hearing from many apartments, the data is not really clear yet, but hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people living in Mountain View apartments have self-evicted because they didn't want to end up with facing the time bomb when the emergency is over, having to pay months and months of back rent. We have to figure out how we're going to get those people back into to apartments, help them overcome, get the deposits they need, overcome discrimination by landlords because they left. This is part of the time bomb that Alex talked about, and we have to deal with it.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Paul.
Thank you. Clearly, we need to be building more housing in this community, but we need to be building it in the right way, in a way that respects and preserves our beautiful neighborhoods that we have today, but and mitigates traffic impact. And so when I was on the council in college, and we built great projects. We built a number of very tall projects there, a number of projects that were appreciated by everyone in the community for their preserving and moving density away from single family neighborhoods. And I think we have that opportunity here, north of 101 in areas that currently are looking for development. And so, how do we live up to our values as a community? How do we make sure that we're a community for everyone? We really get after this and finally start doing it. Instead of planning that takes 4 years to get a project built, instead of passing the North Bayshore precise plan and having nothing occur, we need the council to really get after this and really start moving much faster to get after our challenges and solve this for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret.
Thank you. So I agree that we need to continue to be vigilant in building housing, building affordable housing. We have increased our BMR, our below market rate unit count from about 500 when I first started to about close to 2,500 with what's in the pipeline. But I'm actually looking at this from a different angle. My thought has been that we need to also pay our workers a living wage. I led the minimum wage effort. We now have what I've heard is the highest minimum wage in the country, and it has helped a lot of people be able to pay their rent or their mortgage and other bills. And so I have been looking at it on how we can help folks financially to pay their expenses. I know Andrew Yang was the one I was following. His UBI, Universal Basic Income idea, is something that I've been studying. Our rent relief program is similar to that, and I'd like to see if we can explore something like that here in Mountain View.
Thank you, Margaret. Let's now go to Alex.
Great. Yeah, I helped participate in the Raise the Wage Coalition, and I will say most of our minimum wage workers are renters, and right now, because those wages are not keeping up with rents, most of that increase is going to landlords anyway. I think what we need to do, and this is coming from a heart place, I've met, even before COVID, nurse leads at El Camino Health District who told me they witnessed their nurses sleeping in the break room because it doesn't make sense for them to go back home wherever they live during the middle of their shifts. Imagine having a sleepy nurse helping stick something in your veins. what we need to do is stop attacking rent control, because it is the last line that is giving people a chance to stay here. Over the last 4 years, we've seen the city council appoint an RHC that took renter protections away from mobile homes and that put Measure D before the voters to spectacular failure that I helped lead the campaign on and won by 70%. We need to do that. We need to stop demolishing our apartment buildings without replacing the units that get demolished. And I pledge to do that as a city council member.
Thank you, Alex. Let's now hear from John.
Thank you. In order to protect our essential workers right now, we have to consider hazard pay for them, to be honest, in the short and medium term. Like other candidates mentioned, we have to expand the minimum wage to a truly living wage. And we have to expand our rent and mortgage relief programs and educate our residents to know that they're available and make them more accessible. We have to do continuous outreach to employers of essential workers to make sure that our essential workers have their protective equipment that they need to do their job safely, because every transmission of the virus is an additional vector that it can attack someone else who's maybe not even related. And we have to follow up assiduously with essential workers who may lose their jobs, so we can connect them with state and county resources such as unemployment or assistance if that happens. We can do a lot as a city in addition to building more housing, which I want to do, including public housing with allocations for essential workers.
Thank you, John. Let's now go to Jose.
Thank you. I like what I've heard so far, the different ideas, and from this combination of perspectives, you can come up with a plan to reassess and analyze what it is that we can do next in this process as we transition to not just dealing with the COVID-19 economic situation due to the fallout that we've seen so far, but also to think ahead about how do you look at development? How do you look at housing? How do you look at affordability? We've been talking more and more about public housing, which is a plus. But what I would also like to remind people is that there's still partnerships that are yet to be explored. With the school district, we partnered with developer Fort Bay and the city council. We created 144 apartment unit complexes that'll be well below market rates, guaranteeing a spot for our teachers who are in a tough situation. They're also local essential workers. 20 of those spots will also be set aside for school employees as well as city staff. That type of example is a positive one, but it's not something that's out of the reach for other organizations. If we can look at potential lab developments that are out there, if we can partner up with the county and with the hospitals, perhaps we can do something similar for their workers as well. Is my time up?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Jose. Let's now go to Pat.
Hi. Well, I'd like to follow up with kind of on a lot that's been said here. There's a tremendous amount of consensus, which is really good, because when you're on the council, you're just one person out of 7. You're just one vote. And really, to get anything else done, you have to get 3 other people to go along with you. So it's really good to hear everybody saying we're going to be building affordable housing. We want to protect against evictions. We want to keep the minimum wage up. These are all important things, but we need to do it together. 4 votes.
Thank you, Pat. And last on this question will be Lisa.
Thank you. So yeah, a lot has already been said, and I think this is yet again another issue where there's not one course of action that you need to take. There are multiple courses of actions that need to be taken, and you do need 4 people to move it forward. We've heard about building more housing. We've rezoned quite a bit in Mountain View to enable that. Affordable housing, as was mentioned, we raised the requirements for affordable housing in terms of the percent, as well as you have to build them as opposed to pay in lieu fees. Partnerships, I think, is great. You get some creative approaches to building housing when you have a partnership. And I think the one Jose mentioned was a really good example. I guess I feel like, we do need to be creative when it comes to this. And I think if we put our thinking caps on, working with the county and property owners and builders, we can come up with some other creative approaches as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll now go on to our fourth question, which is, what more can the city do to support local businesses during the COVID pandemic? And let's start with Jose.
Thank you. We've talked about this before during the Mountain View Chamber of Commerce Forum. What can we do to help businesses out? And I had mentioned in order to attract more small businesses onto Castro, we have to reassess the parking fee. It's $100,000 plus expenditure that they have to face of payment upfront. We should delay that until the end of the first year of business, do it on a percentage or a scale, or waive it completely. That'll go directly towards salaries and health benefits for employees that the small businesses will then be able to employ. But I also think that what's going to be interesting is the next topic of discussion for City Council is going to be the small business relief plan. There's several options, several proposals that are being discussed. I looked at them. There's a few of them that are really good. I like number 2, to be honest with you, where you have a devoted a team of experts led by someone who's an expert in the field of small business development to be able to help out businesses themselves, not just downtown Castro, but throughout the city. And in that respect, you're not only finding out what it's in need, but what you can, Brian, okay.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, next we will go to Alex.
Awesome. Yeah, so just like renters and residents, small businesses in particular are very much impacted by the loss of income due to the COVID-19 crisis. Very recently, we saw what was happening with Flights, the new business on the corner of California and Castro, and the harassment that the business owner had to endure because of the landlord demanding a rent really unpayable on time. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we eliminate eviction as an allowable civil remedy due to loss of income from COVID-19. And we need to make sure that the back rent is amortized over a period of time so that it assures the sustainability and survivability of these businesses. Furthermore, we need to make sure that we open up entrepreneurial leadership programs to spur new entrepreneurial leadership in our community and refill any vacant spots that have already, unfortunately, come about due to the crisis. That's what I intend to do as a city council member.
Perfect timing, thank you. Next, let's go to Pat.
Let's see, am I on? Yeah, hi. I too was really inspired by that local business strategy that the consultant put together for the city. One of the things that I think is really important for each and every one of us to remember is that we are the customers for our local businesses, and they need us. They need us to go and buy dinners there and buy books from them and use their services, because they're not having customers from the people who used to work here every day, because everybody's working in their houses. So that's important. I also think that city team, so they have one person or one group to go to connect them to all the people in the city that can help them. That's an excellent idea. Being flexible about regulations. I mean, we want to have people be able to work outside where it's safer. So if they can do that, if they have the space to do that, we need to encourage it, not put up regulatory barriers. And I think the entrepreneurial mentoring is also a great idea. And there are a lot of people in our community that have started thousands of businesses that can be called on to help.
Thank you, Pat. Next up, we'll hear from John.
Thank you. Take the story of small business Red Rock Coffee Shop. They were in trouble. They did a GoFundMe and they were able to stay afloat for now. But a lot of other small businesses are in trouble and don't have the notoriety to do a GoFundMe. As a city council member, I'll be in favor of an all of the above strategy to help our small businesses. That means exploring grants, loans, or even investments to help them. But another thing we can do to support our small businesses is keeping our residents, who are the customers of these businesses, in their house with the rental assistance program, and they're able to patronize the businesses. As a city council member, I will explore anything I can, from rent relief to mediation in the case of the Flights business, to the rental assistance program, to loans, grants, or even investment. We saw that our portfolio of investments work so well for our real estate outcomes, and I'm willing to expand it to our small businesses. It could be a great move for our city right now.
Thank you. Let's now go to Lenny.
So I support what the city's been doing to try to help small businesses during COVID-19. But the problems that particularly retail businesses face in Mountain View predate the pandemic. This is the age of Amazon, and it's really hard for a small retail business to pay Mountain View rents. So one of the things that the city's done and can do more particularly when we revise the downtown plan, is to basically force developers, whether it be housing or offices, to attract retail on the ground floor. It can also include restaurants, but particularly other retail. Basically, if they're going to build in one of the best downtowns to build anywhere, they're going to have to subsidize the businesses that we need to keep our community whole.
Thank you. Let's now go to Margaret.
Thank you. So when we went into sheltering in place, immediately we started hearing from small businesses, restaurants downtown asking for assistance. And what I kept hearing was a need for financial assistance. And that's why we set up the Small Business Resiliency Program. It's this microloan program. We received grant money from Google and LinkedIn, and also put in city funds to do that. We helped about between 70 to 100 businesses, but we actually have funding left over. So we are looking at reopening that program. As mentioned, we have Castro Streets, outdoor dining. We're getting into inclement weather, so we're talking about how to keep outdoor dining available during that time. As mentioned, we have a lot of processes and permitting processes that are kind of arcane, and I think we need to do a review of all of those regulations and requirements and try to make it more flexible for businesses to thrive. As mentioned, the Small Business Action Plan, that was a council goal. It was supposed to be talked about next year, but I asked staff to move it up, and that's why we will be discussing it tomorrow night. I think what's really interesting is
Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks.
Okay, let's now go to Sally.
Thanks so much. So many good things have been said, and I think our approach does have to be multifactorial and doing a lot of things towards this. One of the approaches that I am thinking a lot about is when we bring our new community development officer on board, really orienting that person towards business retention. And I know that our library staff has done a great job of reaching out to the small businesses to talk about specific kinds of help that they need. I also think that we should approach it kind of from a mystery shopper sort of viewpoint. Having city staff call the city departments to see how long things take and how to streamline those. Right now, just getting a business license in Mountain View, if you're forced to shift and work out of your home and you need that business license to get your federal funding or your bridge loans, that can be very challenging. It can be up to a month-long procedure. And getting through the county process can be a very lengthy procedure. So really looking at how it works for people. And I think we have to put a focus on the aesthetics of Castro Street and the sustainability of that.
Thank you. Let's now go to Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay.
So a couple of weeks ago, the council discussed how to help our small businesses, and we asked staff to, in some ways, take us out of the loop when it comes to being able to move quickly, because we don't have council meetings every week or every day. And so we directed staff to move fast, be flexible, and keep track of what's going on at the county so that we can allow and help our small businesses, do business. Tomorrow night, we're talking about, okay, and what do we do from there? And has been mentioned some of the programs. I was wondering why in the plan, it didn't say that we would tap into some of our tech companies here that could potentially help with marketing online. It sounds like the businesses need help with doing that. And we've got experts here in the Valley, so let's tap into them. I also saw an article today that San Jose is doing grants to their small businesses. And I know we struggled with that a little bit, but it's like, wait a minute, what's San Jose doing to enable that? Our small businesses need direct financial help, and I'd like to
Thank you,
see if we could
Lisa.
do that. Thank you.
Okay, and I think our last one will be Paul. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Obviously, everyone's discussed grants, loans, speeding up processes. We need to really make sure that the city is not the thing that's killing our small businesses. For too long, we've had a very scaloric city hall that is caught in the past, that's not been modernizing itself at an appropriate rate. And so we need to really change the culture around City Hall so that not just during this time, but on an ongoing basis, we're keeping up, we're modernizing. We're not waiting for a pandemic to force us to go digital, that we're continuing to improve City Hall on a continuous basis. And we haven't seen that in the past. It's taken just the last few months for this to happen. And so we really need some cultural change from the council on down to ensure that we perform much better as a city going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I think everyone answered that question. Is that right? All right. Let's go on to our next question. Thinking back to the beginning of this year, pre-COVID, how have your priorities for Mountain View changed? And let's start with John.
In the beginning of the year, I was in front of the city council advocating for an expansion of the safe parking program. Last year, I helped collect the signatures and organize the Silicon Valley DSA's contribution to the campaign to defeat the safe parking ordinance last year, the narrow streets ordinance. I had no idea that, what was coming with the pandemic, and I favored expanding renters' rights as much as legally possible. That has been proven that we need to do that now more than ever. We need to expand rent relief, which is direct aid to renters to keep people in their homes, as well as people with mortgages. So my convictions have somewhat been strengthened, but no one could have seen this coming. And I think this proved the prudence of the activist approach that I had taken last year.
Thank you, John. Let's now go to Paul.
I apologize. Can you repeat the question just to make sure I get it?
Sure. Thinking back to the beginning of this year, how have your priorities for Mountain View changed?
Yeah, I mean, it's made me even more concerned that the culture of City Hall is not appropriate for our city going forward, and that we need to move much, much faster. So to be specific, we had, it was very visible signs that our police culture nationwide was not working. And instead of the city responding appropriately, they've kicked it to a process that ensured that the decisions were made after the election, and that we went through a 6 or 9 month review process instead of adequately responding quickly. When individuals asked about the appropriateness of the budget during the COVID time, they were told, this has been a process that's been running for 7 months. We can't change it now. Sorry, it's done. And so that tells me that we need a council that's more flexible, processes that are more flexible, staff that's ready to respond when things change, and just a culture around City Hall that needs to move faster. And so it's certainly been highlighted during this period, but it's something we need to retain even after this period. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's now go to Lenny.
So I think the pandemic has exacerbated issues that we already knew were there, particularly with housing, but also education and healthcare, things which other agencies are the lead on. What's new, and Paul referred to this, is the nationwide concern about policing. And we had hundreds, maybe thousands of people out on Mountain View streets protesting national policing. And so even when I was on council, I was talking to our police department to make sure that we didn't have the unnecessary use of force. But that's a new priority in dealing with the disproportionate treatment of Black and brown young people by our police department. They know it's happening. They don't know why. And yeah, I'd like to do something about it, but I want to figure out why before we go and do it.
Thank you. Let's now go to Sally.
Well, at the beginning of this year, I was actually campaigning for a different office. And one of the things I was talking about in that campaign is the need for our communities in our state to be cross-trained to deal with multiple critical incidents at once. And the scenario that I brought up then were fires, pandemic flu, and the possibility of a major earthquake. And the need is still there for our communities to be responsive, particularly with climate crisis and everything that we're facing. And I think that Lenny is really right in the sense that this has brought up all of the factors that we know were already there in the community. I don't think that we really imagine the specific scenario in terms of COVID itself and the failure of the federal government. But we do have to do better in terms of protecting our communities and the sustainability of our communities.
Thank you, Sally. Let's now go to Pat.
Hi, yeah, at the beginning of the year, I was really focused on climate change protection. As an environmental engineer, it's something I've been working on for decades. And now I don't feel like I'm alone at all, particularly with the recent wildfires. Everybody wants to work on climate change, and that's a great thing. I hope that our these horrible wildfires can really be transformed into an opportunity to change the way we do business in the positive way. I think it has intensified problems that we knew about, but we didn't know how deep they were. The difference between the haves and the have-nots. We do have incredible income inequality in our community, and I think that, and in our nation, and I think that this has been, it's really intensified. The other thing that's come really and hit me so hard personally is the issue of systemic racism. We need to work on that very hard.
Thank you, Pat. Let's now go to Lisa.
Thank you. So certainly COVID has changed our priorities, and we've spent quite a bit of time working on that, how to help our residents, our businesses, how to help the city deal with the ever-changing county health orders and what's going on with COVID. I don't think any of us expected that to happen. I know I certainly didn't. But the other priority, as mentioned, is taking a look at, as our subcommittee is called, race, equity, and inclusion. I think we want to we're looking broader than just the police department. Well, that's been highlighted, and our police department did make some immediate changes. We want to look across the board. We've done a little of that in the past, but I think, this is the time to really dig in and make sure that there is no, built-in racism to any of our systems, and take a look at equity and inclusion, which is one of our council goals, community for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now go to Jose.
Thank you. What I'm hearing here is that there's a consensus to adapt, to be flexible. The way I looked at things last year, before all this began, compared to now, it's a night and day difference. I'm also a member of the school board, and we've known that the diversity in socioeconomic and cultural and financial disparities that our community faces is a lot. We were able to, because of the pandemic, though, look at this more as an opportunity to see what can we do now while we're in a position of power. So we partnered up with Google and the Mountain View Educational Foundation to bridge the digital divide. Every one of our students has a Chromebook so that they can participate in distance learning. And I bring that up because it's an opportunity for us to reassess how it is that we look at governance, how it is that we look at partnerships, and how, because of the advocacy that we all want and that we all want to preserve our city and the beauty that it is, to build that community up, to include everyone as we live here in the same social space, regardless of where we come from, where we live. That's the biggest challenge, and we're here to deliver as much as we can.
Thank you.
Boy, I hate that little noise, man.
I'm
Jesus.
sorry.
It's okay. I missed the timer.
Let's now go to Margaret.
Thank you. Well, certainly at the beginning of the year, I was looking forward to being mayor and all the fun things about being out in the community. But then COVID hit and changed things. I was planning, the last 4 years, I've spent time on climate change issues. I came off of last year leading the REACH code effort. I serve on the Air Quality Management District. So these issues of climate change, I think, have just been accentuated by the pandemic. And fiscally, I actually was anticipating a recession, maybe not this one, or as drastic as this one, but we knew the cycle was coming. And so I was preparing for that. And here, sure enough, I think we just had to speed up our processes more. But I want to say something about speed. Speed is not always the best way to go. I think it's important to look at these issues, especially the issue of racism and inclusivity, and take a holistic approach. Make sure we're getting public engagement. And that's what takes time sometimes, or it takes time all the time. So getting things done as quickly as you can is not the best way to do things, especially for government. We're not private sector. We're not about the bottom line. We're about long-term community sustainability. And that takes time, that takes engagement, that takes thought processes. And that's what I'm focusing on. And I think sheltering in place has given us that opportunity.
Thank you, Margaret.
To look at things. Thanks.
And let's now go to Alex.
Awesome. Yeah, so just as people have noted, COVID really highlighted and laid bare a lot of the issues that were already in our society. Number one, it's called shelter in place for a reason. We need to make sure people stayed housed during this emergency and afterward. Second, yes, it is true that wildfires and climate are a major exacerbating factor for once you contract the disease. So, I've been wanting to work on climate, no lie, since like 2004 when my dad and I went to go see The Day After Tomorrow, since 2006 when The Inconvenient Truth came out. I've known my future has been on the line since I was a teenager. And the way I would address that specifically is we need to make sure we have energy resilience. And I would make sure we study distributed energy resource technologies and microgrids as a way to assure that we have hospitals, traffic signals, and first response available when the time comes. We need to make sure that we reduce our heat island effect by increasing the albedo and reflectivity of our buildings and making sure we have no net loss of tree canopy. And we need to make sure we prioritize infill housing and reduce parking requirements to get people out of their cars, because gas emissions are the #1 source of greenhouse gas causing impacts that our city is causing. And that's how I would do that as a city council member.
Thank you. Okay, we have 15 minutes left, so I'm going to squeeze one more question in and then we'll have your closing statements. So this question says, ask and answer. What issue do you wish we had asked about and why? So you get to make up your own question and your own answer. And we'll start with Margaret.
The one issue that I've worked on over the years, and it's, I'd say, maybe taken a bit of a backseat, is transportation. But I believe that for sustainability, housing and transportation go hand in hand. I am supporting Measure RR, the Caltrain measure. That's one of our transportation systems that has worked quite well with a high fare box, I think the highest fare box recovery in the area. That's unfortunately what's making it suffer right now. But I would have liked to talk more about transportation, the future of transportation, telecommuting, while we're talking about that in the context of clean air. So that would have been an issue that I'd like to spend more time on. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's now go to Jose.
This may not cross through everyone's minds on this amongst the candidates, right? But for me, it's always been fascinating and just to see how team dynamics play out. When I was part of the school board, and still am, it was dysfunctional. And what I find fascinating is that sometimes when you have such difference of opinion, it leads to stalemates, to gridlock, and a lot of bad feelings towards one another with no progress. What I would have liked to be able to explore is the question of what can you do to bring change to that? And that's consensus building, that's team environment thinking, that's being able to figure out how to place your needs, your personal interests, when sometimes they're very passionate, to the side for the greater good of the community. It takes a big person to be able to dialogue with one another and to accept that difference is a part of life, but it takes a bigger person to work with others when you have those difference of opinions. And to get to that spot for a resolution takes patience, it takes a lot of give and take, but it takes an ability to think like a team to be able to succeed. If we don't have that as a premise, we're not going to do much.
Thank you. Let's now go to Sally.
Well, there are so many things that come to mind, and others were able to work in the policing question, which I was kind of jealous. I didn't think of a way to do that. And to me, it's really important. And looking at what we can do regionally, I would like to see our council be involved even with some of the juvenile justice issues that have been so important to the league and so important at the county level. And I think for me, it's one of those issues where unfortunately, Mountain View has been kind of absent in the policy process at the state and the county level. And so I would like to see Mountain View get back engaged in that sense and take a position on some of the really critical issues that come up at the state level, like police use of force.
Thank you. Let's now go to John.
I love this question. And I was delighted tonight to hear so many questions about issues of economic justice. I would have liked to have a question more about maybe social justice. And I'm thinking of a few facets. So I've talked a little bit about the fact that we have terrible arrest outcomes for our Black and Latinx people in Mountain View. And that's because of over-policing or proactive policing. I want to reduce the use of proactive policing in Mountain View to stop over-policing our Black and Latinx residents. Also, LGBTQ issues. I want to have guaranteed representation on city boards and commissions for LGBTQ plus people. And finally, renters' rights. Renters have lost a great deal of rights because of the poor implementation of the CSFRA, because of landlords and property managers on the rental housing committee. I would only appoint renters to the rental housing committee, in particular, mobile home resident. So thanks.
Thank you. Let's now go to Paul.
Thank you. The issue for me that cuts across every issue we've discussed tonight is the effectiveness of our city. A city that spends $350 million and has 600 employees, the question that needs to be in everyone's mind is, why are we getting so little done? Why can we not review, or why can we only review a fraction of the projects that developers want to build in our community? Why do we have to wait months for the staff to respond? With these huge amount of resources, we should be building more and doing more, moving faster. And so we need to all be thinking why our city is performing so poorly compared to our peer cities, compared to our neighboring cities, and what we can do to change that, because it affects every single issue we've discussed tonight. And so I've experienced working in a far more effective city, the city that moved faster, that operated better, that had less controversy. And I want to bring that experience to our community and do what I can to help improve culture in City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now go to Lisa.
Thanks. So, Mountain View is a leader in so many areas. I think we need to recognize that. We're a leader in housing, sustainability. I mean, I feel like I could go on and on and on the areas that we're a leader in, affordable housing. But what I really wanted to talk about is sustainability. I feel like we didn't talk about that too much tonight, and I think it's really important. We had a large group of residents who put together a great plan. We massaged it a little bit, and we now have a fantastic 3-year plan to substantially reduce the carbon emissions in our city. I'm a little bit concerned that if the city's financial position changes too dramatically, we're going to be making some tough decisions, but I personally would like to keep that sustainability action plan on track and make the investment in it. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's now go to Alex.
So 2 things that I feel extremely passionate about is the protections that individuals have from the state and improper searches and seizures via the 4th Amendment, and also cybersecurity. I'm a cybersecurity expert, I work in the industry, and what is really catching up to us here is that our technology and the public-facing technology that in particular police are using to collect data passively and continuously from individuals is going unchecked. In last June, I saw how the city council, unfortunately, no blame, it's fine. There's usually not that much cybersecurity expertise on councils or even in city staff, but they essentially rubber stamped a drone program that had very weak controls for data. We don't know who gets to access the data, who gets to share it, and what purpose it gets accessed for. If I get on the city council, I will make sure that I bring that expertise onto the council to make sure that I'm protecting individual liberties in partnership with my colleagues.
Thank you. Let's now go to Lenny.
So a couple of us mentioned rent control, and I think that's the issue that actually splits the field. 3 of the candidates appeared on landlord flyers in support of Measure D. Measure D would have created loopholes in our rent control laws so large you could drive an RV through them. I supported Measure V. When I was mayor, I labeled the landlord's petition the sneaky repeal. Unusual, but they spent $260,000 and they decided to pull it from the ballot because they knew it was going to lose. Led the fight against Measure D. And I was prepared before COVID-19 to circulate a petition to get rent control for mobile homes. The city council is going to be appointing a rental housing committee people. I want to see council members who are committed to appointing people who want to make CSFRA work instead of what the incumbents did, which is saying they didn't want anybody associated with the campaign on the rental housing committee. We need rent control and it needs to be done right.
Thank you. And let's now go to, to Pat.
Yeah, the question I wish you had asked is, how is COVID going to help us green the economy? And there's 2 ways that I'd really like to see us go that. One is we need to increase the number of people who bike on a regular basis. Biking is not only 0 GHG emission, it's great exercise, and it's socially distanced. It's socially distanced public transit, especially if we can get people on e-bikes, then you can go even further. So increasing the number of people that ride bikes on a regular basis, that's something that I'd like to see as a positive outcome from COVID-19. Another one is moving on electrification of the existing housing stock. Right now, it's pretty cumbersome to get your house electrified because you have to hire a whole bunch of different contractors. We need to have groups trained so that one contractor can do the whole job for people. And then the other, all right.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left, but we have 10 minutes of speaking left. So let's do your closing statements. You each have a minute. We'll just run a little bit over. And I've been trying to mix you up and I hope it's been fair. I'm doing the best job I can, but I apologize if I haven't done it quite right. Let's start with Lisa. So you each have 60 seconds for your closing statements.
Thank you, and thanks for the great conversation tonight. We are in tough times, and I think we're going to be in tough times for a while. So it's really important to have people with experience that can lead through challenging times on the City Council. It's also really important to have a very functional council, as was mentioned, with great working relationships among the council members. You know, we don't always have to agree on everything, but it's really important to be respectful and listen to different perspectives. Over the past 4 years, my decisions have been guided by one value: what is best for our residents to preserve the character and diversity of our city and have a walkable, bikeable, and sustainable community with great parks, trails, schools, and services. If you have any questions about anything I've said tonight or that we haven't talked about, don't hesitate to contact me. You can find more information on my website, lisaforcouncil.com. That's Lisa for F-O-R council.com. I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex.
Yeah. So I'll leave everyone with this, and it's a question. What is experience good for if what it is used for is to advance initiatives which harm the most vulnerable in our society. What differentiates me as a candidate is, one, I have the perspective of my future, the future of my yet unborn child and family, on the line with all of these catastrophes happening around us. I have done the legwork over many years to go into our community and understand the most material needs and harms that are being excised upon the most vulnerable in our community, and have steadfastly worked to build partnerships with our organizations, with our community members, with our legislative leaders to address those impacts. I have the experience that is required to look after everyone in our society, not just private interests. So I ask for your support to protect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Jose.
Thank you for putting this on. I appreciate your time as always, and I appreciate the time and the ideas of the fellow members who are running for city council. I think that one of the most important things we can learn from one another is that leadership takes it takes many different shapes, and it takes many different perspectives to get to a certain point. You begin at one issue with a certain perspective and you end with another. And that's just life. And in this free market economy, unfortunately, there's a lot of inequity. We all know that. Heck, I know that. I'm a Mexican-American male. Please, you know. I'll give you one quick example. And I know this has nothing to do with my ending statement, but look, I had a choice to make when I was a kid. We were driving to a part in Texas. We stopped by, my mom, my dad, myself. There was 2 police cars and a sheriff car. We went in there for breakfast. We were never served. The hostess comes in and says, "You're better off going somewhere else." At that time, I had to make a decision. Am I gonna blame all white people or not? And what can I do to make a difference? That's why I'm in a leadership position, because I want to make a difference, because I've been through that type of issue. And it's not easy to deal with. None of these issues are. The challenge is, how will you react to the challenge that you face now as an individual and a member of a team like City Council? I hope to win your vote, and thank you.
Lenny.
When I was on the city council, I was one of the people who made Mountain View a leader. I voted to give us the highest minimum wage anywhere in the country. With Pat and others, I made sure that we became a leader in the Bay Area in building housing. But I didn't just lead by example. I spoke at regional conferences talking about how Mountain View was building housing, but not tearing down neighborhoods, hopefully not demolishing rent-controlled apartments. I testified that Stanford should not be allowed to keep adding to jobs without mitigating with new housing. So if I'm back on the council, I not only will work for Mountain View, I'll work to make this a better region. So I ask you to visit my website, lennysiegelforcouncil.org. You can not only read that website, but I've made a series about 16 or 17 videos. There's a link to them. If you want to hear my position on a wide variety of issues or what I've done for Mountain View, go there, lennysiegelforcouncil.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat.
Let's see. Whoops. Oh, I am not on mute. Good. Yes. Well, thanks for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure to talk to everybody tonight. I've been championing housing and the environment in Mountain View for 20 years, and you can count on me to continue to do that. I have a reputation for listening and treating people with respect, and that's vitally important on the city council because you would get much better decisions when people with differing perspectives work together and come up with a melded, comprehensive plan. I'm really proud of the work that was done when I was on council. We built 2,500 new housing units, 300 of them affordable. We opened 3 parks. We increased the bike infrastructure dramatically, and we raised the minimum wage. I'm progressive, pragmatic, and persistent. I respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you. Let's go to Margaret.
Thank you again for having this forum. Being mayor this year has been quite an experience, as you can imagine, but it's also solidified my desire to continue to serve this community on the council. Now more than ever, to get us through all of the challenges ahead, I believe I'm the right person to continue to serve, as I understand how things work, have the relationships, the knowledge, and wherewithal to get things done, the bold leadership to break new ground, and who represents the diversity of our community. I appreciate the recent endorsement by the town crier, which stated she was mayor in 2009 at the height of the last recession. Re-elected in 2016, she's provided steady leadership as mayor during this new crisis. Abe Koga has the institutional knowledge that can benefit the many newcomers on council and city staff. Finally, I just wanted to call upon all of the candidates in this race to follow Mountain View elections tradition in staying positive and talking about oneself and not negatively about opponents. That is the Mountain View way. Let's not distort information, but stick to truthful issues and keep it positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Let's go to Paul.
Thank you. We need to ask ourselves as we look toward the election and who we're going to vote for, how's things going in our community? How is the track record of the individuals that are there today? When we have a community where road quality is down dramatically over the last 4 years, where homelessness is up over the last 4 years, where we have a council in a city that's taken 4.5 years to respond to RVs on our street, a community where individuals are electing to self-evict and move away from our community, we need to ask, is that the right direction to continue in? But at this critical time, we need experience. I have experience on a council that worked better together, that got more done, that had a better culture that we can improve upon here locally. And so we need to think, is this the right track for our city? Is this the best we can do? Is this a city that lives up to our values? Or can we do better? And is it time for some fresh perspective and some fresh eyes and hands on City Hall? Thank you.
Thank you. And John.
Thank you. Thank you to the league, and congratulations to the league and all the other candidates for putting up with a very difficult timer situation tonight. So I'm running as a progressive, as a renter, as an activist. I love living in Mountain View, and I'm running because I want to do my part in keeping it through these difficult times, the inclusive, welcoming, and sustainable city we all love to live in. As a data scientist, I will bring the systemic, scientific, holistic analysis that we need to City Council for solving our problems. And as an activist, I have organized, built coalitions, waged and won campaigns, and I will bring that skill to building coalitions on the City Council. Tonight, I've talked about a wide range of issues, and I invite you to visit my website to find my full platform at votelashley.com. And I humbly ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sally.
Thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate hearing from my colleagues about their vision for our city. I don't agree with the view that every single thing is messed up about our city and that we're hopeless. And, because the fact is that this is a really good city that a lot of people have invested their efforts in over a very long time. I've been here for 24 years and I've seen so many inspiring things about our city and about our diversity and about what we've achieved together that it's really amazing. This is our hometown. Whether you're from here or you came here, this is your hometown now. And we're going to make this the best city that we possibly can. And it's going to take all of us working together to be able to do that. But we have a really good city. We have an excellent city staff. Council provides the policy direction. So if we want more progressive policies, it comes from council. And we're going to have a good city for the future. So thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you. So I would like to thank the candidates for participating and the volunteers who have made this forum possible. The League of Women Voters believes that a democratic government depends upon the informed and active participation of its citizens, and we hope that the insights you've gained from this forum will help in planning your vote. To look at a personalized ballot with information about your candidates and ballot initiatives, please visit the Voters Edge website at www.votersedge.org after you receive your ballot. Voters Edge also provides information about major donors for candidates and initiatives. When this forum closes, our webpage will appear showing our election events and links to recordings of those that have already occurred. For the November 3rd election, please vote early and deposit your signed ballot in a ballot drop box or mailbox as soon as possible. Thank you for helping make our democracy work. This concludes our forum. Thank you and good night.